Oh, when you drink, I got to get you to like turn away from the mic.
Oh, really? Is it that bad?
I mean, most of it I can edit out, but every once in a while, like when I'm in the middle of talking, you drink and it's like drinking right into the mic, and it's just,
Oh, sorry.
it's like we might as well be doing an ASMR video or something, and like glug, glug, glug.
Oh, I didn't realize it's that bad.
I mean, you wouldn't normally think it is, but you pick it up, you know, it picks up on the mic. Those two. Like when you clear your throat or cough or whatever, you gotta like turn to the side because there's a couple of them that it's like,
Oh, Jesus.
Jesus.
Oh.
Welcome to the Desert Lair, episode 5. I'm Dustin, functional misanthrope. Dillon's here, mostly functional nerd. This week we're talking about He Never Died. We'll get to that after the news, though. Jumping right in here, there are concerns that the tariffs might cause a rise in the cost of hardware for video game consoles. Yeah, that's kind of what happens when you tariff a bunch of import goods and are made overseas and stuff that you couldn't reasonably or feasibly make here as an alternative. So, yes, tariffs will probably rise the price of hardware. That's, just kind of how that works, right? I did see they were talking about trying to make the PlayStation 6 Discless, or they were just talking about whether they could do it or not. Xbox has already done this, I think, with one of the newer consoles. Eventually, it's going this way, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you guys download it, what's the point of making a CD and you have to freaking, burn it to the CD? Like, you waste all that money and, just time and energy to do that when you just download everything now.
I mean, I feel like if your console doesn't have some type of way to read media, whether it be a cartridge or a disc or whatever it happens to be, and it isn't something specialty like a Nintendo Switch, which is also a handheld, like at that point, it's literally just a computer that has a port to plug a controller into, which is probably wireless anyway at this point.
Consoles are already going that way anyways because they pretty much have to have the power computer just to run some of those games now.
Yeah, so they're talking about whether it can be discless, and obviously it's going that way. We've blurred the lines between what a console and what a computer is at this point. So at a certain point, they're just going to start selling desktops that just have a Sony logo on them. You know what I mean? I did see they were making a new Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think they're in talks with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I don't think she's obviously going to be the star of the show, but she's going to be featured, or I think it makes sense, right? That was a hugely popular show. It's been plenty of time that they can try and milk it for some more money at this point.
Seems like a lot of shows lately are coming back after a long time.
I mean, I would bet if you looked at TV throughout the years, this probably happens every few years,
At least some of the ones that I like are being revived, so that's cool.
It's interesting. Obviously, Joss Whedon will not be producing or probably involved in any way, shape, or form. I did see Destiny 2, one of the expansions, I guess they're talking about, it's missing some dialogue or voice acting because of the Screen Actors Guild and Federation of Television and Radio Artists. So the SAG-AFTRA are on strike.
I honestly, good for them because, they get paid like shit and they desperately need to get paid more.
Yeah, I don't follow it a whole lot. I know if you're not a big name actor or voice actor especially, I'm sure there's probably some heartache there, especially depending on where you live. Trying to live in Hollywood or in California, and you have to get paid to live there, right? They were talking about Dragon Age, the Veilguard again. They didn't think it did well because it didn't engage a wide enough audience and because there wasn't shared universe resources or something like that. Basically, what it sounded like to me is this wasn't a live service game, and that's why it did poorly.
Look at Baldur's Gate 3. That's all you
Well,
need to
yeah,
look at.
I mean, that's the obvious answer. One of the ex-staffers wrote this. Look, I'm not a fancy CEO guy, but if someone said to me the key to this successful single-player IP's success is to make it purely a multiplayer game, No, not a spin-off. Fundamentally changed the DNA of what people loved about the core game. To me, I'd probably quit that job or something, he said. Lidlaw continued, just thinking out loud, of course, who'd be silly enough to demand something like that? Twice. That's a pretty direct jab there, I think. Quit trying to make single-player games, live service games. Just stop. That's not what people want. It's not what they're looking for. They have a live-action Gundam coming out.
Yeah, I was never really interested in Gundam, so...
I think the problem is I'm interested in Gundam, but I don't actually like Gundam. The concept, I guess, interests me, and I've tried to watch several of these, of the anime of Gundam, and I cannot get into it.
I've tried in the past and I didn't like it all, so I just didn't watch all the rest.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I guess I didn't get the love of giant robots. Kingdom Come Deliverance looks like it's doing quite well, part 2.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of expected it. There's certain things about the game that are different than others. I think it kind of gives its unique brand, especially the combat, which I played and beat the first one, but oh man, the combat was just... It felt slightly clunky, and I've played the fighting type games like Devil May Cry, where it's going to do the combos type thing. I don't know why they kind of went more of that route rather than the wheel thing that they have, and it feels slightly clunky and it doesn't feel seamless like it should. I don't know.
Yeah, take your take your hand off your cord and whip it around. I think you're yanking the mic and it's...
I wasn't the one who did that, by the way.
Nah, just awkward angle. I put it back up there. From what I've read, it seems like the story is pretty good and the quests apparently are well written and there's a lot of stuff to like about it. But yeah, the combat to me is just super off-putting with the wheel and maybe I'll cheat through it at some point in time just to see if I like it, because someone was kind of almost comparing it to Skyrim. Maybe not a direct comparison, but they were just saying I haven't played anything. Gave me the same feelings as Skyrim, and this does that.
Some of the skills, when I remember the first time I played Alchemy, was you actually have to pour something in, grind something, use the thing to fan the flames. Yeah, this is way different and sometimes a little tedious. Trying to get the max skill level, you just do it for hours just to get the skill up. It's just oh my god.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of grind to do a thing to get a skill up, because the point is that you do it over time and your skill builds up. But inevitably, playing a game, if you can just do it on repeat, then you're just going to continually do it until a skill is maxed, right?
Yeah, I would say that tends to be more the way.
Yeah, you're not going to play through a game and just casually use this skill and then it gets better over time if you can literally just sit and do it 500 times and max the skill. That's what you're going to do every time. Show me a person who doesn't do that when they're playing a game like that. I understand what they're going for with that type of thing, but the implementation of it in a video game oftentimes just doesn't work well. And again, the combat, ugh. Maybe I'll suffer through it to check out the game. Let's see. They're making a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake coming in August. I think it leaked or something. Did you ever play any of the Metal Gear Solids?
No, it's more like a stealth game, which slightly reminded me of Splinter Cell, and it's just those super stealth games aren't really my thing.
Yeah, so I remember when Metal Gear Solid, the first one, came out on PlayStation, and it was a huge hit. Obviously, everyone, at the time was talking about it. It was pretty cool, but I never got into those games. I mean, they're this giant, cheesy plot, and just the stealth action genre, though, I cannot do it. Especially when you give me a game where you have all these guns and all this cool shit and all this stuff I want to use, and you're like, no, don't kill anyone. Sneak around like a pussy. Oh, come on, man. Don't give me all this cool-ass gadgetry and shit to mess people up with and then tell me to sneak around.
Yeah, I felt like that Dishonored, especially, because the best ending is go out of your way to you have to sneak and not kill people to get the best ending. It's just...
You could do all this super cool shit, possess people and kill you. I'm cheating to get your ending or watching it or something. Yeah, I'm not playing through your game that has all this cool shit. I don't know. Maybe the point is play through it twice, but no. Magic the Gathering coming out with like a shared universe, TV shows and all kinds of stuff, which to me seems like a no-brainer. You have this massive fantasy universe with all this lore and all this other stuff. And I think with the recent, what's the TV show based on is it League?
Yeah, Arcane.
Yeah, Arcane, that did phenomenally well. Yeah, I can see why they want to do this. It makes sense and it's easily something they could pull resources from to make it into something worth watching. Blizzard looks like they're releasing player housing for WoW.
Yeah, I'm assuming people have been asking that for like over a decade.
Since WoW began, basically. There are plenty of other games that have had player housing in some shape or form. Kind of surprises me it's taken this long for them to implement it.
Look at Final Fantasy 14. They literally have to have a lottery system just to give people a chance to get a house. There's so many people want one, and the servers can't handle that many instance places for every single person who wants a house.
That was one of the jabs that Blizzard made is against Final Fantasy 14, is they're saying there won't be any lottery systems. There won't be any, if you quit playing and come back, you lose all your stuff. They're like, nope. Anyone who wants a house gets a house. You won't lose it if you leave the game and come back.
The server size you have to hold to have that many things would just be ridiculous.
They could probably easily swing it as, hey, look at how many players we're going to bring back because of player housing.
Yeah, that is true.
I think yesterday and maybe still today, I'm not sure, but it looks like the PlayStation Network was down, which makes me laugh because I guess outside of scheduled maintenance, how does your entire service go down when you're Sony?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Invest in better resources, man. What are you doing? Movies, it looks like they have a new Captain America coming out. Did you watch any of the Captain America movies?
Yeah, I watched them.
I haven't seen any of them. Marvel, I don't know. I'm interested in some of the Marvel stuff, but most of it, there's just too much of it. There's a glut of Marvel, and I understand that, but I'm just not super interested in a lot of it. I haven't watched any Captain Americas. I probably won't watch the new one. Did see they have a Led Zeppelin documentary coming out. Kind of interesting that it's taken this long.
Yeah, that seems like it would come out way sooner than that.
Jimmy Page and Robert Plant decided to allow it, I guess. I think that's all I've got. Did you see anything that caught your eye or was interesting?
I saw that Avowed was $70. It's going to be released in a couple of weeks. Inflation and cool. How much can we push to get this price to increase?
Creeping up there. Avowed is...
They're made by City Entertainment.
That one's kind of a no-brainer, right? Assuming they released a finished product, hopefully.
I'm just going to wait because I ain't paying $70.
Yeah, I mean, Steam, if you wait, a year? Probably not even that. It'll be on sale, right?
I mean, I don't want it to do bad, but if it does bad, less than a year, it'll be on sale on Steam. Several games I saw did terrible. It's like, oh, well, if you just give 40% off, well, someone will buy it on principle of it being a sale.
Steam does a pretty good job with the sales. Anything else?
Not really, no.
All right, you want to talk about this movie?
Mm-hmm.
So this is He Never Died from 2015. I think it's a Netflix movie, or maybe it was different video on demand type stuff, but I think it ended up on Netflix. Directed by Jason Krawczyk, starring Henry Rollins. I want to talk about Jason Krawczyk a little bit first. So he's fairly new, I think, or at least he hasn't really done that much. He's made maybe 3 movies and some random stuff. So he's not a very big director or well-known. And I don't think he's even really directed like box office type stuff. It might just be these Netflix type movies. That being said, he seems like a really cool guy, like down to earth. So I was looking him up and I watched a couple videos, and I mean, he seems kind of nerdy, but he's on podcasts that are like the size of ours, like ones that literally no one has watched.
Oh, okay.
I think I looked up a video with him and it was like 43 views. So like just some, like if I called him and said, hey man, do you want to be on our podcast that literally no one has watched? He'd be like, sure, yeah. So he just, he seems like a pretty cool guy, down to earth. And that's, I mean, when you're a smaller director and maybe trying to make a name for yourself, but even still, like, you don't, he doesn't have to do that kind of thing. Like, the podcast with 43 views, that's not helping him really in any way, right?
No, I wouldn't say it really is. Just some people like to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I just thought that's a really cool thing to do. Essentially, these people are your fans, right? So you're going on a podcast with your fans to talk about your movies with them. So I thought that was really cool. So he seems like a pretty cool guy. A little bit nerdy about movies and stuff. There was an interview with him and Henry Rollins too. Henry Rollins, I think he's got like a rock and roll band. He's definitely a strong personality. I'll put it that way. He's an interesting guy. So the start of this movie then, the very first minute of this is just all these hellscape sounds playing.
I thought I was going to go into actual scene of showing hell or something. And then it didn't. I was just like, oh, okay.
It's him trying to sleep. I mean, obviously he's tortured, right? It's telling us right off the bat he's a super tortured soul. Can you imagine trying to sleep and you just screaming in your dreams and like people being murdered and tortured and stuff? So pretty quickly it introduces us to him, and the first 20 minutes of this movie is hilarious. Like, I was laughing the entire time. He opens the door and gets his landlord. He doesn't have any clothes on. I mean, he's in boxers or whatever. And she's like, oh. And he's nonchalant. He just doesn't care. She's like, rent's due. And he's like, oh. Like, hold on. He grabs the rent. And he's like, what day is it? And she tells him the date. And he's like, what day of the week? And then, like, she starts talking. And he literally just closes the door on her as she's speaking.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I was like... Is that your landlord? Like piss her off. She could do something to make your life hell. Like,
yeah, evict you or kick you out or what? I don't know. But I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm going to start doing this. I'm just going to try. The next time someone's talking to me and I'm done, like, I'm just going to close a door on them and see what their reaction is. It was awesome. He sits down or whatever, and there's another knock on the door, and this girl shows up and like she tries to speak and she doesn't say anything. She just runs away. And I like how he doesn't even take a second thought. He just closes the door and goes back to bed. Doesn't even question what's happened.
At a certain point, I guess you just don't care anymore.
Well, I mean, that's what the movie's trying to show us. He's so far beyond the point of caring. Just existing seems to be exhausting to him, right? That's the message trying to portray here throughout the entire movie. And it works. He definitely seems like anything that he has to do is it's a chore. Right after the knock on the door on that girl, he gets another knock on the door after he's like trying to sleep. And so he gets back up and there's this like, the thugs are at his door and he basically just closes the door on them too after like he punches the guy or something. I like how the guy's just like, okay. Like, so then they inevitably kick in the door and come in and just, first of all, they're like super inept. Most of the bad guys in this movie or whatever are pretty inept, I felt like.
Yes, absolutely.
He gets into a scuffle with them and I like how he grabs the dude's nuts, and I'm just thinking, like, if I'm the director, I'm going to make him wear a prosthetic dick, and I'm just going to tell Henry Rollins, like, grab this dick with all your might. Like, I want this to look as real as possible. Like, you're not going to grab his leg, you're not going to do this pinch. Like, I want you to grab a prosthetic penis and just fucking twist it.
That's crazy.
But I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny. The other thing too, if you're the guy getting your nuts grabbed, imagine trying to act that scene and a guy goes to like, how many times would you have to film that to not flinch?
Yeah, I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, it would be impossible. Like someone's trying to nut tap you and you're like, you just flinch every time, right? 27 takes later, when he just grabs you, like it would have to be. I feel like the director would have to tell Henry Rollins, like, here's what we're going to do. You're going to grab his nuts, but we're not going to tell him because otherwise it's going to flinch. So he gets into a scuffle with these guys and they like shoot through his hand and bash him in the head and he messes them up or whatever. And then does he just leave after that? I forget.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I think he just like, okay, whatever, and I'm just gonna leave, and he just leaves him in there in his apartment. Like,
yeah, and then he goes to the diner and he's all messed up or whatever. And I like how the waitress is like, "What happened to you?" And he's like, "Oh, my landlord thought I was robbing my own house."
It's like you couldn't possibly come up with a better lie than that. Seriously,
Like, you could just say I got mugged or something. Like, my landlord thought I was robbing my own house. And then she's like, "Isn't your landlord like 90? She pepper sprayed you?" And he's like, "She's really spry."
that was the latest thing no. Oh god, they fight so many like he fights with those two same guys so many times, like getting like the fights mixed up.
Well, the first fight, happens, and then he goes to the diner and he's all beat up, and like, remember the guy maces him, so his eyes are all bloodshot red.
Okay, yeah.
He ends up back at his apartment. He gets a phone call, which again, like, it just everything that happens in this guy's life is just a chore. Like, he's annoyed that anything has to happen for him to react to it. He's like, "Jillian, why are you calling me? I remember hating you." Everything that he says is just so matter of fact. It's on a level of autism. And then she basically tells him, "You have a daughter, that girl that showed up at your door was your daughter." And then he's like, "I hate you." And he's like, "Abortions cost about $300. You can afford it." Man, could you imagine if someone called to tell you had a daughter and you're like, "Abortions are cheap. Why didn't you get one?" Like, man, what a piece of shit you are. So anyway, she tells him, basically, "You live close by. You're her dad. I don't want her driving drunk. Go find her." This is kind of the first scene where you see he has a conscience a little bit. He tells her, "Don't ever call me again," and hangs up on her, but he's still going to find his daughter. He's annoyed about this, and he asked her why she didn't get an abortion, but he's like still going to go find this kid. So there's a glimmer of a good person inside of him, maybe. He's going to search for her, and I like how there's a scene, and he goes into that payphone, and he's like looking through that phone book after he talks to the bartender. And I'm like, where did they find this thing? Like, did they have to create? When's the last time you've seen a payphone anywhere with an intact phone book, no less?
Do they even make phone books anymore?
Yeah, I'm like, was this a scene out of a different movie that was like 15 years older? Like, I don't even know where they found a phone booth with a phone book.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen one in quite a while. Maybe they filmed it in Canada. Maybe Canada still has phone books or something. So he finds his daughter at that guy's house. They're back at the diner. She's like, "By the way, I don't have any money." And he's like, "Well, how were you drinking?" And he's like, or she tells him, "Vaginas are like coupon books for alcohol." Man, if there was anything that you didn't want to hear your daughter say.
Yes. I thought that exactly. I was like, wow, if I had a kid, that's the exact opposite of what I want one of my kids.
Yeah, it's like, I don't. Can I go wash my brain out after that comment? Like, oh god, man. I write notes and then I can't read the notes. I should just go back to the phone. She convinces him to let her stay. I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting that she's negotiating with him about how long she can stay. Like, he doesn't immediately tell her like get lost or go home or order her a cab. So he like lets her hang out, and then she's talking on the phone to her mom the next day, and he just walks over and grabs the phone from her and hangs it up. Like, he's like the most ill-mannered asshole. He goes to meet his blood bag contact, and they kidnap the kid because he took out some kind of loan or something from these guys. I like how he Terminator rips the guy out of the mail truck and just throws him onto the ground and jumps into it.
The part I thought was interesting is you're this nurse in school, and some random guy is like, "I need some blood," and he's like, "Okay, what for?" What do you say to that without seeming like a complete creep weirdo? Yeah, I need blood. It's just like, oh, sure, I need money, so I'm just going to give blood to this random guy, like, on a regular basis.
I guess if you needed money, there are worse things that you could sell to people. What nefarious purposes does he have for this blood? It's weird, for sure, but at the same time, whatever. I would probably sell him the blood.
I'm assuming there's like some sort of inventory system at the hospital to where it's like, why are we missing blood?
Didn't we have like 20 people donate? How come we only have the blood for 15 of them?
I know, like controlled drugs. It is a huge deal at the hospital if something's missing like that.
Yeah, I mean, presumably the blood wouldn't have quite as stringent as a system as the drugs. But yeah, I mean, I like how, though, they don't look like the blood bags that you see in like vampire movies and stuff like that. It's literally just a giant bag of blood. I don't think this is how blood comes from a hospital exactly. What is he doing? Just dumping all these blood bags in a random bag and giving it to him? When he goes to get the kid back, so they see him again. And my first thought is, like, these guys are so inept. Like, if I see this guy who beat the shit out of me and, like, I shot him and he still kicked my ass after I shot him, my first reaction to seeing him again, especially with some distance, like, I'm immediately going to shoot him.
The 4 times in the movie where they fight this guy or whatever, it's just after the second or third time, either, unloading the guy completely with a freaking shotgun or something, or like run away because obviously this guy is behaving like a normal person.
Yeah, I mean, this is the second time, but it's like the guy goes after him with a hammer, and I'm like, man, he messed you up last time. You maced him and like you shot him, and why wouldn't you just immediately shoot him? You're going to try and fight this dude with a hammer? Like, he's going to use that hammer on you, you moron.
How low of an IQ do you have to have?
Yeah, these guys are definitely goons. He gets back. You can tell he's just extremely exhausted from this whole experience, right? He's had to go out and do things and interact, and he kind of gets the shit kicked out of him again. And he just wants to go to sleep, and then his daughter comes back. She's like jumping on his bed, and she's like, what are we going to do today? She's like a child. Like, what are we going to do today? And he's like, I'm doing it. She's like, we're going to sleep today? We're not going. She's like, do you drink? Do you smoke? She's like, no. It's just like, wow, you're boring. I wish it gave a little more context for that. Maybe alcohol and drugs don't affect it. Well, they clearly do affect him because they drug him later on. I feel like if you've lived this long and you're just so exhausted and nothing, like, I feel like you would be a major drug addict.
Just to get past the insane boredom and I'm done with life.
Yeah, to me, it seems like you would just be a raging alcoholic and all the drugs and all the... Did you watch that TV show Preacher?
No, I didn't.
No. There's a character in that who's a vampire, and he's just this drug addict, meth head, because it doesn't... I mean, it affects him, but then he recovers from it because he's a vampire. It kind of reminded me of that. If you've lived all this long life, especially this guy, it feels like, again, just existing is a chore. I kind of didn't buy that part, I guess. Like, wouldn't you be a massive raging alcoholic, drug addict, just anything?
I think I remember he kind of talks about wanting sobriety because the vampire cannibalism part, and he doesn't want to do that anymore.
Well, yeah, but the sobriety he's talking about is not a drug sobriety and an alcohol sobriety. It's a cannibalism sobriety.
Well, I think by doing those other things, his like inhibitions are away, and he has to use all of them just to stop himself from being a cannibal. And
yeah, that's fair. That's a good point, I guess, is that maybe the drugs and the alcohol lower his inhibitions enough to where he can't contain his hunger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I'll buy that. So it doesn't look like she's going to convince him, and then he finds out again that the day is, Tuesday or something, and so it's bingo day. He takes her to bingo. It's literally just something for him to do to pass the time, and he likes it because all the old people don't trigger his hunger, I guess because they're old and beef jerky-like or something, so he doesn't want to eat them.
Bingo, I feel like there's an age requirement to do bingo because I've never seen any young person ever do that.
Well, I like that when they're in the diner, right, and his daughter's talking to him about bingo, and The waitress comes over, and of course the daughter sets him up with the waitress because the waitress has been trying to flirt with him, it seems like, forever, and he just completely ignores her, right? He doesn't want anything to do with it. Even though he likes her. You could tell he kind of likes her. Maybe just because he's around her every day. He has a soft spot for her. But the daughter's asking the waitress about bingo, and she's like, no, of course I've never played bingo. Like, I'm not 1,000, you know what I mean? It's kind of her reaction. She's like, oh, well, we play bingo. Do you want to come? She's like, I guess. I like how his reaction, though, is he's like, I'm younger than 90 is like... Obviously, you have to justify the fact of why you're playing bingo as someone who's not 1,000 years old.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
They drug him, right? This criminal organization. So as they're going back, he passes out and they kidnap him. After they kidnap him, he wakes back up, kills that dude, right? He like rips him into the river, and then they're fighting over who's going to jump into this cold-ass river. How would that even be a conversation? This is the third time you've encountered this guy. He's clearly inhuman at this point. I like how the one guy's like, he's on some uppers or some bath salts or something.
Yeah, that part was hilarious.
And then I like how they drive by and he's like, that's the guy. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And he's like, well, how can it possibly be anyone else? He goes back after he gets away and he's had this taste of blood now and kicks his daughter out. And then I like how the neighbor's got the music blaring all loud and then yells at the landlady, and he tries to yell at Henry Rollins. So Henry Rollins attacks and eats or kills and eats him. And I like how the next day the scene is him literally just dumping like a black plastic bag of body parts in the trash can. I'm pretty sure they're going to trace this back to you.
Yeah, I was like, the whole part was like, okay, so you killed the guy in his apartment and then just dump him in the trash, like the dumpster of the apartment. Like,
yeah, like you can't drive down the road or throw him in the river or the water or something. What are you doing, man?
yeah, when, his family of the guy just doesn't hear from him, they go, like, he's gone, no one pays his rent. Like, well, what happened to him? And then I'm assuming the smell of the rotting core, like body parts, is going to attract someone.
Yeah, like, here's the thing. I don't think you can throw bodies away in dumpsters without people, like, they have to sort through trash, right? I don't think you just dump trash, so they're going to find a body, I think. It doesn't work that way. He ends up back at the diner. Again, he's got his ass kicked. He's all beat up and stuff. The waitress at this point is like, you like getting the shit kicked out of you, obviously, because you keep coming all messed up. And then her ex-boyfriend, who she shares a car with, shows up and she's getting in into an argument. And so he goes out to stop it. He literally spits blood in that dude's face.
Yeah, that part was just like, that's like...
If there's one way you want to show someone you're crazy as fuck, spitting blood on them. The guy's reaction, though, is just like stunned. She doesn't have a car, so he asks her, how far are you going? She's like, about 12 blocks. And he's like, oh, you'll be fine. Just walks away. Just everything that he does is just so matter-of-factly and completely... It's not even oblivious, necessarily. Like, he just doesn't care.
Yeah, I definitely got that vibe. It was just like, how much can you not care about anything in life?
I mean, at a certain point, you have to be able to function around people, at least, to not make your life difficult by being a massive asshole all the time. But he ends up walking her home. And I do like the part where he starts listing all of the jobs that he's done. And it's just this mile-long list of all the stuff that he's done throughout the years. Like more things than any person could possibly have done in a lifetime. She's like, well, I went to business school. And then they kind of have a moment and they hug. And then he gets all awkward and weird and runs off again. At this point, I'm just thinking, man, this lady has bad taste in men.
Yeah, I don't know why she was interested in the first place. At his level of, I'm ignoring you repeatedly.
Yeah, like I'm just an aloof dick all the time. I mean, I guess he's kind of a good-looking guy. He's a specimen for an older guy, right? He's maybe she's just shallow and like, oh, I want a guy who looks handsome and doesn't ever speak. He's thinking about his daughter because he was kind of ignoring that whole thing, right? They said they have her, and he just tries to ignore it basically, and doesn't go to the docs. He ends up back at his house, and he rips out that bag of blood and tries to drink it. And I'm like, I guess I'm confused about what happens here, because I feel like you must have done this before, obviously, because you keep buying all these bags of blood. Like, do you not know how to use a cup? Did he accidentally rip the bag open and spill it? I'm confused about this part. You've drank blood from this bag before. Why did you rip the thing open all over your kitchen floor?
Yeah, maybe it was just full feral mode and just had to get as fast as possible.
I don't know. That part kind of confused me, but it did remind me of our childhood bagged milks.
Oh,
I guess he just doesn't have the technique down for stabbing a straw into a bag of milk.
our school's so poor.
Oh, I also like in that part where, because he spilled all this blood on the floor and he needs more of it, it shows a scene of him and he's sponging it off the floor and then squeezing the sponge into a cup so he can drink this blood. How do you do that scene as an actor? It's fake blood, and I'm sure it's edible. It probably doesn't taste great, but it probably doesn't taste bad. I'm sure it's maybe slightly sweet. I guess I don't know what fake blood tastes like, but even still, I feel it would be a little weird putting anything on the floor and then mopping it up with a sponge and squeezing it into a glass and drinking it. Because unless they cut there, but I don't know. It didn't look like it. It literally looked like that's what he did. So it was just...
The cup he probably poured into and the cup he probably drank from probably wasn't the same.
Yeah, maybe they're not. But they do a lot of that in movies, where they put weird shit in their mouth and they have all this stuff all over them. Some of that to me is, it seems like it would be difficult to do sometimes.
One thing they can never get right is when they have to stick a needle in someone, it clearly shows the needle, like it shows the syringe, but right as it goes in, it doesn't show the needle at all. So it's
disappeared, so they can't. Unless they get a prosthetic body part or something, maybe, but it would have to be pretty thick to get a needle all the way in there. The one shot in this movie visually that I do like is just kind of the landscape shot of the building with the power wires and the snow and stuff where they're outside. This movie looked pretty good for a newer movie. There was nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't overly interesting, visually as a movie.
Yeah, there wasn't really any like, oh man, this is so amazing. It was just like felt pretty normal.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I felt like this movie was low budget, but didn't seem low rent, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they had a massive budget to make this movie. I assume they didn't. That's really the only kind of shot that I liked in this movie, or that was visually pretty interesting, was that. He goes back to this diner. These goons are there to get him. A waitress is scared, she's having problems. She tells him, like, help me. And then all hell breaks loose. He just starts murdering all these people, and they find this guy again for the fourth time.
The other guy that didn't die?
Yeah, the other goon. So he kills all these people. He murders all these people in front of this waitress, and she's like, are they here for you? And he's like, yeah, I think so. I like how this stuff happens in his life. There's these criminals and all this stuff going on, and like he barely even knows what's happening, it seems like. He's just so done with life that all these people trying to murder him and all this stuff going on around him, he barely is cognizant of what's happening, almost, it seems like.
At a certain point, it's like, people are trying to kill me. Maybe I should fake my death and go somewhere else or something. That just doesn't register because he just doesn't care enough.
It's funny to me, stuff happens around him and he tries to ignore it. Even when people are trying to murder him and kidnap him and stuff. It's almost like he just hopes it's going to go away, like he pretend it doesn't exist and the situation will blow over of these people trying to murder him. He kills all these people in this diner and he drags this body out. I like how he's snacking on a finger as they're leaving. So he gets the waitress lady, they get in her car or whatever, and he's convincing her he wants to put this body or this guy in the trunk. And she's like, no, you're not putting someone in my trunk. And he's like, I'll give you $1 million. So like he basically bribes her, forces her kind of into the situation, right? Because she's probably not doing too well financially. She's a waitress. So she agrees to take the money.
You're eating in this diner and you have $1 million? Like you couldn't live in a better neighborhood?
Well, I mean, obviously it doesn't matter to this guy, but...
She doesn't know, like...
Yeah, that's what she's thinking, like, you just have $1 million?
Yeah, that's... If that was me, I'd be like, so some random guy who is here, lives in, like, I wouldn't say the slums, but a lower economy neighborhood sort of thing. It's like you live here with $1 million.
So basically you're weighing your options of, do I roll the dice and see if I can have this $1 million? Or maybe I don't trust this guy who just murdered all these people, presumably got shot in the head, but seems like he's still functional and wants to put a body in my trunk. You're saying in this scenario,
I'd be like, no, thank you.
you're going to say no. You're not going to try and pursue this $1 million.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, okay, let's say he does have this. And in this situation, you're going to think is this must be drug money, not clean money.
Yeah,
of thing.
he clearly didn't get this in any way that was legitimate.
Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, I'd be like, no, thank you. I'm going to go back to my life and then pretend that, I never knew you existed.
I mean, I'm going to have to find a new diner to work at because I think all my coworkers are dead now. And, there's a pile of bodies in this one. So also, the police may have some questions for me.
They just are suspiciously absent from a mass murder that I'm assuming at least one person walked by and heard gunshots.
Yeah. They go back to the apartment and the conversation or the interrogation of this guy who's not only is he inept, but Henry Rollins, his character, just a straight matter of fact. It makes for just kind of the shortest, easiest interrogation ever. Like, when have you seen any interrogation in a movie go this simply?
You literally saw your guy or you shoot this guy in the head and he just walk away. And the other part was there should be a bullet still in there. Somehow he got it out and he's already healing. At that point, I'd be like, I'm more afraid of you than anyone else could possibly fight me. So, I'm going to answer your questions truthfully.
Yeah. I also like that part, though, where they're in the car or whatever, and he's pulling that bullet out of his head in front of her. And he's trying to talk to her, and she's like, don't look at me. You have a bullet in your head. Stop staring at me while you're pulling this thing out of your head. Like, I don't want to see this. So they're in the middle of interrogating this guy. The phone rings and he gets into a conversation with this guy who's yelling at him and put the other guy back on the phone. And, the other guy, again, is very cooperative. He's like, oh, no, I'm going to tell him I'm all fine and you didn't hurt me and they should just leave you alone. But it doesn't go right. Of course, they've already sent the guy to kill him. And I like how Henry Rollins asks him, he's like, would you be broken up if I murdered him? And the guy's like, are you going to kill me? And Henry Rollins like, probably not. And he's like, no, then I have no problem with it.
Yeah, at this point, I'd be so terrified of the guy. It's like, whatever you want to do that gets me away from you as fast as possible.
Whoever you want to murder is fine by me as long as it's not me. But then I like it. He's like, we're done? You're just going to leave? He's like, yeah, I think so. I think we're done. The part before that, though, where they're dragging the body in, where the landlady comes out and confronts him. He's literally dragging a body and she comes out and he just drops it. And the landlady is completely oblivious to the fact that he's dragging a body. Like, doesn't even notice. I'm like, can she just not see too well? Or is she just so senile? Or like, maybe she's seen this happen before and you don't question dragging the body. But I like how she meets the girl, though, and she's like, oh, nice to meet you. Like, she's happy for him that he's found a girlfriend, but the waitress leaves, and he tells her, I'll never see you again. Just leave with all this money. And he ends up back at her apartment.
Yeah, and the part where she asked him was like, well, you're going to go kill a bunch of people, right? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. She's like, come on, man. Like, that part had me dying.
He just shakes his head. He's like, well, I kind of just like, fuck. But then he convinces her again. He's like, I got this bag full of trinkets that are like, I feel like at this point she's doing it because she cares about him. She cares about this daughter. It's not about the money anymore because at this point she has $1 million. Does she need more, especially to deal with this bullshit? Like,
yeah.
I'm still thinking, though, at what point do you decide maybe I should not get any further involved in all these people dying and this biblical figure who's the original murderer?
Like you said, I think she just legitimately cares and wants to help the girl or whatever. So.
I mean, I get that, but at a certain point, it's like, I just have to say, maybe not. maybe maybe I don't want to get any further involved in the thousands of years of horror that this guy has been a part of. They drive to where they're holding the girl hostage or whatever, or have her kidnapped. I like how when he gets out of the car and he tells her, "You can stay here." And she's like, "Yeah, I was going to." No, I'm not going to go inside with you while you murder people. This part of the movie, I feel like, gets kind of cheesy where he starts fighting all these goons. It kind of falls apart a little bit here, I felt like. He shoots the guy, and then the other guys don't know that the guy with the shotgun blasted him. They're kind of confused. That part was kind of cheesy.
A shotgun blast makes a lot of noise. Like
the relationship he has with this crime lord, it's almost like a frenemy relationship. The guy says he hates him, but I'm not convinced that he hates him, I guess.
in the conversation with the guy, he kind of talks about, well, the crime lord's father was murdered, and he pretty much over time eliminates everyone else except him.
I don't know. I mean, to me, the feeling I got was that it almost seemed more like he hates what he's done, but he doesn't necessarily hate him. Like that, just their relationship, I didn't get that hatred, I guess.
There was a part where he talks about, well, I knew you weren't normal or whatever or something. And I was slightly confused. Like, so you knew this guy wasn't a normal guy you could just shoot and be done with it.
I don't know. I mean, he says, "Oh yeah, I forgot you're strong." I don't know that the movie is specifically trying to tell you that he knew that this guy was superhuman, essentially. This guy's a hired killer or whatever it is he did for him. Obviously, they're kind of in a mob setting, so he's hired muscle of some sort.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just slightly confused because the way he kind of like, okay, I knew something about you wasn't normal, but like, I don't know if it really described in detail how much he actually knew.
Yeah, I don't think he knew about the supernatural portion of it. He wants to kind of kill this guy slowly, and he's kind of torturing him, and he rips his foot off or twists his foot off basically, so he can't escape. The one part I think is interesting is we have this ambiguous figure, right? Is he the devil? Is he God? That's kind of the impression that I got. He's supposed to be God based on his role, because it's God who cursed Cain, not the devils. But the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting, so the movie paints him as like he's done tons and tons and tons of terrible stuff. And he says that. He starts naming all the really awful shit that he's done and all the awful events that he's been part of. The movie's trying to show that he has a tiny bit of redemption in him because he cares about people who are close to him. He tries not to get close to people, but he does care about people who are close to him, his daughter, this waitress. And he has a little bit of a conscience. Well, and he tries not to eat people, too. He's legitimately trying not to do that. I don't know if he's trying not to eat people because he wants redemption or he's just disgusted by it. He has this compulsive need to, but it's eating people. So that part wasn't 100% clear. But the impression that I get is that it takes an emotional toll on him as well. So even though he's done all this evil shit, like he still has a conscience. But the one part that is really interesting to me, when he starts screaming at this God figure, he doesn't show any remorse for the original sin that he committed of killing Abel.
Yeah, I like he goes wave is like, I don't show any remorse, and like that guy was like a bitch or something, and yeah, I forget.
Yeah, he's like, he's a little prick. He doesn't show any remorse whatsoever. He's like basically saying this guy deserved to die. Like, who gives a shit that I killed him? Why is this the original sin? Or would murder have not existed if I didn't kill him? Like, clearly someone else would have killed someone else, but I just like that specifically he is not remorseful about this thing that literally has caused his entire existence.
And like some other parts where I feel like he just wanted to do it just to see what the guy would do. Like, how far can I go before he takes away my immortality to like actually kill me?
So maybe he's committing all these awful, terrible things to see if
the God figure will take it away or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of those he did just because he wanted to or like he didn't care. But other ones I feel like he went out of his way to do it just to see how far he could go. To see if the God figure would actually kill him for real, sort of thing.
I think that is an interesting point. And you're probably right about that. He says that I impaled people just to watch them die. So, I mean, the point of view that it shows is that he's just a piece of shit, that he did it just to do it. But I actually agree with your point. I think that he probably did do some of those things to try and get whoever this God figure is to do it. Like he's trying anything to die, to end his existence. But all this shit that he's done, he's still not remorseful about killing that original person. Like, he doesn't get it.
The God figure doesn't say anything, but I think he just wants them to suffer until he finally understands that you screwed up and you need to be remorseful and want to be redeemed for doing the first murder in history or sort of thing. I don't know.
It's unclear, but clearly he doesn't get it. After all this time and all that he's been through, he doesn't understand, like, you murdered someone. Well, I guess let's talk about the ending. It's non-existent.
So when that guy leaves because that lady is like, well, I need your help to get your daughter get in the car. And then he shows up to the crime lord guy. And it's like, why? Why now? You're like invisible to literally everyone else. And all of a sudden you decide to show up now. Like, why? And then it doesn't explain. It just ends. It's like, why? It doesn't explain anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way it's judgmental, right? He's saying don't take revenge. It's almost like he's trying to prevent him from committing more sins, even though he's just murdered all these people. I guess the point is, this one is a personal murder. The other people he just murdered because he felt like eating them, like the neighbor. The neighbor was a dick, and he's like, well, all right, well, I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat you. But this one is a revenge murder. He hurt his daughter, and now he's going to torture and kill him. The God figure, I think, is there to essentially judge him and tell him, like, how many times are you going to do this? How long does it have to go on? How many bad choices are you going to continue making before you get the point? It does kind of end well for him in terms of there is a tiny shred of redemption, because instead of committing this murder and getting his revenge, he's going to go take his daughter to the hospital. That it kind of does work in his favor. But yeah, it ends pretty abruptly. It's a cliffhanger ending, more or less.
And I feel like some directors do that on purpose to keep it open-ended of what you interpret to be the ending sort of thing.
I think in this case, though, they had plans to do a sequel and potentially like a miniseries TV kind of thing. I think there were plans to do other things with this, so I feel like that's maybe part of the reason why it was kind of a cliffhanger ending. If there were more of this, would you watch it? Should we get into scores first?
Oh, yeah, let's do scores first.
All right. You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
You can go first.
We're right on this damn chalkboard. Visually, this movie didn't have a whole lot going on, but not every movie has to have that. And there were some cheesy parts, and again, it was kind of a low-budget movie, but the first 20 minutes of this movie is legitimately hilarious. Like, it's a dark comedy, and I liked quite a bit of it. I'm going to give this 4 stars out of 5. I thought it was pretty funny, and I liked the character, and I would watch more of it.
I'd probably give it a 3, but with the hilarious bits, I'd probably get a 3.5.
3.5?
Yeah. Because, yeah, there were just certain parts that just made me die laughing with how much he's so done with.
Yeah, I mean, they did a perfect job, I think, illustrating this guy just wants nothing to do with existence. Everything is a chore to him. Just existing is exhausting. So, would you watch more of it, or it's like, I mean, there was some funny stuff, but how did you feel about this movie overall?
I mean, there's some funny bits, but it wasn't like anything
Special?
Yeah, it wasn't anything special. It just felt so like the dime a dozen type of movie, except the dark comedy bits. That was funny.
I would agree to an extent. Again, it was a low budget. It was just, this is one of those like content movies, they've pumped out on Netflix to flood it with content. It went a little above and beyond. The writing and some of the dialogue is pretty good. There were some legitimately really funny parts to this. And I would watch more of it. Like I would watch more scenarios of him in these weird situations with his just matter-of-fact type of humor. And also, I kind of like the director. So, that doesn't necessarily affect, I guess, my score of the movie. But I do like the director, and I would be interested to see more stuff from him. He has a couple other movies. Maybe I would watch another one, but I would probably rather see more of this than his other movies out. Anything else?
No.
For next week, I bought a bunch of movies for Black Friday, so I have a giant stack of them that I need to get around to watching. But this one, Megan, I kind of wanted to watch, and we can talk about that.
Okay.
We can do that next week. I think that's all I got. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. Later, man.
Yep.
Yeah, that movie was kind of just on a whim. Did you wait until after to take a drink? I mean, it's fine if you cough or drink like when you're talking, because then you stop talking, so it's easy to edit out. But like if I'm talking and you take a big drink right into the microphone, I'm like, fuck.
Trying to look away.
Yeah, it's like this glug glug glug. And then like I didn't realize, but you're yanking the headphones because they were like around your arm, and it like making the like tapping sound in the microphone.
Oh, well, you wrapped around that or whatever. I didn't realize it until I looked at it.
Yeah, I think it's just because I laid it down. But I barely finished editing yesterday, the other episode. I want to try and find stuff that I haven't seen to watch. I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of good movies we could watch that we've already seen. Yeah, that Kingdom Come to Deliverance, I didn't realize how popular that was or was going to be.
I figured it would be pretty popular. I don't know, it's just the fucking combat in that game was such a slog. I was like, they couldn't make it like Skyrim, or they couldn't make it like Devil May Cry. They had to like do this weird ass wheel fucking combo system.
That definitely is off-putting.
And the story and characters were really good, and certain quests I liked, but it's just like every combat was just like, ugh.
I mean, I'll cheat through it, so it's not as bad, I guess, but still, it's...
Oh, for me, it was bad. Like I said, I can literally handle like the highest level enemies in the game, and yet a huge group of peasants with sticks. Into the alcohol thing.
Yeah. Thankfully, those are easy to edit, because it's like 20 minutes of me setting up, and then like 8 minutes of me doing a video, so those aren't too bad to edit. These are a little more time-consuming to edit.
Oh, I looked at another thing. I like how the one video that has more views than all the others was like you changed the thumbnail to not be just this picture, like a static image of the bar. It's like,
Well, all of these episodes are not static images.
I looked, and it just has like a static image of like the bar or whatever, and like the one with
When's the last time you looked?
yesterday.
Did you, well, look at the episodes again, because the bar ones are a static image, but the episode issues are not.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess the one that did well was like the picture of Keanu Reeves with the thing on his head.
Yeah. I don't know, the views thing is like the amount of views that it shows me on the actual channel, and then the views that it shows me when I look on like a different, you know, like if I just type it in and I'm not logged in, are different, so it's kind of wonky, but.
Oh, okay.
I mean, regardless, I just figured there's basically nobody watching them anyway, so.
Yeah, I see plenty of videos like on my feed on the side of like what recommended, and there's ones that like make sense of like why I would link those, and there's just random ass ones with like 5 views that have nothing to do with the content that I'm watching. Like, what is this random ass video?
Well, I think some of it has to do with ones that were just released. So if it was released like 10 minutes ago, then it'll, you know, I think it tries to give you a little bump or whatever. But again, I did think it was interesting, this director. Like, I think he's like a Netflix director basically. So he's not, probably doesn't make that much money, but I did think it was pretty interesting. Like, I was watching an interview where someone's doing a podcast with him, and he's literally doing podcasts that are like the size of this one. Like, there's literally fucking no one watching them.
Yeah, I mean, there's this guy, I don't remember his name, but he does a similar type of thing or whatever, where it's just like him and like a famous actor or whatever on the other side, they're talking about random stuff. But I mean, it's super popular. I don't know who that guy is exactly. I think he's like another actor or like something, and he decided to stop acting and just do his show or whatever.
Which makes sense. I mean, you know, obviously you're going to watch someone who's famous.
Yeah, so it's like Stephen Amell's been on there a few times.
I do know the podcast, the 70mm podcast, which, so there's a website, you know what IMDb is, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So there's another website called Letterboxd. I don't know if you know what that one is.
No, I don't know what that is.
So it's kind of like IMDb, except it's more like community based, and that seems to be the one that everyone like has latched onto, like the community. So the movie community is kind of latched onto this Letterboxd thing, and so they have a podcast, and I think they were doing like a Lord of the Rings episode, and Sean Astin, who played the guy Frodo's companion.
Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah, he played Samwise. He actually called in. So they have this thing where people can call in and leave these voicemails. Sean Austin left like this half-hour long voicemail. It's pretty funny to listen to. I listen to some of those episodes of that podcast of that 70mm. The problem is, I mean, they're good, they're funny, you know, they know what they're doing, but they're just not my people, you know what I mean? They're not nerds kind of like us, so it doesn't, you know, I don't know, it just doesn't really jive with me, I guess. Even though they're good at it, it's funny, they're entertaining, but yeah, Sean Austin called into that podcast or whatever and left like the longest voicemail I've ever heard. And they make fun of it too. It's like he just rambles on and on and on about Lord of the Rings and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty good.
Okay, the one I'm talking about is called Inside of You. I don't know the guy's name who runs it. TV stars on there.
What does it say its name is?
I don't remember, I need to look at his name. No, Michael Rosenbaum is the host of the thing.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
But yeah, I mean, he has several stars like on the show, whatever he talks to.
I don't know. A lot of times I find I'm not super interested in what actors have to say. I mean, you know, you watch interviews and stuff, I'm just like, I'd rather hear like a director talk, you know what I mean? I don't care about actors as much.
Listen to Stephen Amell talk about his like wrestling show.
I still think it's hilarious. Read something or watching something where someone said he was looking a little fat, and he got super pissed off and like, I'm 24-hour juice cleanse away from being in the best shape of my life. He's like, give me your address and I'll come and steal your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Like,
Stephen Amell?
yes!
Oh god.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
Considering the guy is married with children.
I mean, it was still hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. Because I'm like, you know what? He's probably right.
I wouldn't doubt it, honestly.
Someone's like, what happened to your abs? Like, got fat or something? And it's like, fuck. Like, lost his shit.
If you told me like you have to do this, it's like, dude, I don't know if I was a man, I could wear this much fucking makeup.
I was watching a thing with Felicia Day. You know, she has all her little YouTube stuff. Or one of the things is like she plays games with her brother or something. And I was laughing because she was ribbing him because she's like, you know, noticed you didn't have any issue, you know, putting on a little makeup or whatever. And he's like, oh, I had a little blush, a little redness going on or what, you know, because the makeup artists are pretty good at convincing you like, oh, you know, you could look a lot better. You could, if we just put a little bit of this or whatever. But I mean, as an actor, I'm sure you probably get used to it pretty quickly. You know, it's just a thing. That's what you're going to do. As a normal person or a normal man who's never worn makeup, to have someone put makeup on you, you're probably like, this is fucking weird.
Those View Dirt League guys do all their own stuff, and I was like, do they wear makeup? I don't know.
Almost guarantee you. Pretty much anyone who's on any kind of film, TV, or whatever has makeup on. Like, almost guaranteed.
But I mean, they always do like those, they're like in some like underwear type fucking thing where like they always show their upper chest and they're like, stuff is just like, clearly they don't care.